Saab friends, my name is Gary and this is my channel Weakest of Weeks. Today we will be resolving an emergency brake cable failure on my 2008 Saab 93 project car. Now this process that you will see in this video works for either side, the driver or the passenger side. You can get a replacement cable that includes both of them, going all the way up to the emergency brake lever, but today we were actually able to source just one of the cables, the broken one here on the passenger side, and that's what we'll be replacing and I will be showing you. This same exact process will work on any 2003 to 2011-2012 Saab 93s. So let's go ahead and get started. Tools recommended to do the job. I'll start with a 17mm socket. Doesn't have to be a deep well, but this is what you need to remove the lug nuts. You need a T25 Torx. This is a 1/4 inch in a socket style Torx bit, but this is what you'll need to remove screws on the side of the center console. 3/8 socket, as well as a large 3/8 socket extension and a 13mm socket. That will make it possible to loosen and tighten the e-brake mechanism. An assortment of trim removal tools that makes the center console and trim a little bit easier to remove. A flat blade screwdriver that helps fish out the grommet for the e-brake. Now these, kind of use these in conjunction to tug on that cable to reseat it. And then some wire snips. There's one zip tie underneath the carpet. And then this is just old speaker wire. You can use yarn, fishing cable, anything like that. It's just makes your life so much simpler. You tie off the old cable. That way, whenever you pull the cable out, you can actually snip this, you tie the new cable to it, and fish it back through. Lastly, we have a Dremel. Definitely not required, but it'll make your life that much simpler. Whenever you remove the old cable from the caliper bracket, you just use the Dremel to clean it up. And one thing I don't have shown here is some anti-seize whenever you put the new cable back into the caliper. This stuff I'll link in the description if you're interested and that you don't have these tools readily available. We need to start by loosening this emergency brake cable. And how we do that is go inside the vehicle, pop your armrest open. Yours may be a little bit different. I don't know if all of them had this, but this is the coin slot holder, this rubber deal. Pops right out, set that there. Lift this up. Again, yours might be different. I think some had an auxiliary port, but I think that's what that would have been. And then it gives you access to a 13mm bolt right there. Fun fact, that's exactly how you adjust your e-brake. So what we need to do, and I've already taken a marker and I marked a point of reference, and we will go counterclockwise and slowly loosen this until we loosen up that cable on the caliper enough to finagle it out. And make sure you go slowly and count your revolutions. So mine, I backed out 7 revolutions counterclockwise, and then we loosen this up pretty good. This is the reason why I'm replacing my cable. Yes, you may say this occurred whenever I was pulling it out of here because this metal color gets very frozen up and rusted and fused into the caliper bracket there. But no, this has been a pre-existing issue, and you can definitely tell by all the crud that's built up in there. So what is happening is whenever I pull the emergency brake cable, there's one of these on each side. That driver's side works perfectly fine. This one, it doesn't clamp as well as it should, and the wheel still kind of spins a little bit whenever the emergency brake lever is pulled up. But after further examination, I found out that this was broken. Your issue may be tied to the cable on the caliper side, or even I've seen before, this is a used replacement cable, but this is the ferrule that connects to a bracket on the emergency brake cable lever itself. This I've seen pop off before, and then the cable isn't going to be tugged up and provide the clamping power back here. So whether your issue is on this side or this side, if you see anything like this occur or you're having emergency brake issues, you will likely need to replace this cable. Loosen up the T25 Torx screws, one on each side of the console. Now need to remove this rear vent. Grab a trim removal tool and pry around the edges. reason why we remove this rear console vent is so we're able to position our hand inside the vent like such. Basically, you're going to push your fingers towards yourself and it will release. There's two small tabs on each side. Releases like such, and then you can finagle out this rear trim piece. With the back side of the console exposed, you can now see two tabs, one on each side. So if you are placing both emergency cables, the passenger cable will run on the passenger side, driver cable on the driver's side. So if you're replacing both, you will need to take both sides off. I'm just doing the passenger side, so I will just be doing this passenger side console piece. So what we'll do is this tab right here, just lift up. So this shows us the cable on the passenger side, and now what we need to do is push that out like such, get a screwdriver, and remove this. Now the cable is officially removed. There's a couple brackets from underneath that will need to wiggle it out, but what is stopping us in our tracks is the fact that it runs underneath the carpet. Before we make any attempt to remove this emergency brake cable, we'll want to tie something around here. That way it makes it that much easier when we pull the cable back through, because it is going underneath this carpet. I was going to initially use yarn, but I just didn't trust it. It's too brittle. You can use fishing lines. I have some really old speaker wire that I never intend to use, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it around here, and it'll make it that much easier when it comes time to fish the new cable through. This rear seat section does need removed to get access to underneath this carpet area, because this carpet does need folded forward to give you access to the e-brake cable. But fortunately for you, my friends, click up top here, and I do have a video about how to remove this rear cushion. The cable runs underneath this carpet, so we actually have to flap it forward. To do such, we need to remove on both sides this trim piece right here. So it is partially underneath this weather stripping, but it's rather simple to remove. You can get trim removal tools if you really wanted to, but honestly all you need to do is get your fingers underneath here and pry upwards. And then it releases. What we need to do is push up this carpet as best as possible. It's going to be very awkward to do such, but pretty much need to push it forward to give us access to this grommet, get a screwdriver and pry it out. Around this side of the carpet, there's actually an anchor point where it's zip tied to a stud. So we'll need to get the carpet up as best as possible, reach in there and snip that wire tie, and then we should be able to tug on this. There's a few anchor points, I believe 3, that are looped like this, where this e-brake runs along and it mounts to either the chassis or the suspensions. This one is the closest to the caliper. You just get pressure on both sides, push it down. There's nothing really locking it in place. Crawling underneath the vehicle, just get your finger and pry down and then push up. So that's the second one. And the third one following along is right here. Push that out. There's a clip where an electrical line just clips onto that. Following along, might be hard to see, but the e-brake cable runs right into here, in between a fuel line and some brake lines, and that is the grommet right there. So what we'll do is actually push this grommet back and actually inside the vehicle and pull this line from underneath into the vehicle. And here's that tied in portion that's really going to benefit us when we go to reinstall the new cable. So now we just need to wire snip this off and do the same thing, tie off the new cable, and then that way we just fish it through. Replacement cable has been tied off to the tether. We'll go to the front and pull it through. Fish the rest of this cable back through to the underside of the car. Don't worry about the grommet just quite yet. Before you tug too far on the rear side by the caliper, definitely make sure you have this end hooked up. That goes into the emergency brake lever mechanism here. We need to loop the ferrule on top right here. Cable loops around where you can see the chafe marks, and then that yellowy plastic bit clips right into there. And this is what it should look like. Grommet is wrestled back into place. We can now lift the carpet and drape it back to where it needs to go. Yes, I did not reattach the zip tie that was located right here. If you really wanted to, you can, but kind of buried underneath the carpet and it's not going anywhere. So let's go ahead and throw these trim pieces back in the rear section. Just make sure that seal is down, everything is seated. 2 clips right there. Sometimes you get a satisfying click, and then this just pushes down. 2 clips. Before we fish the emergency brake cable back through where it mounts into the brake caliper, it's a good idea to clean this hole out. And how we'll do that is with a basic Dremel here, knock out some of this rust, throw a bit of anti-seize in that hole, and then fish the e-brake through. Getting the lever and the cable reattached is no fun task. So I had this lever as far forward. I had the vice grips on this cable tugging it back as far as possible until I was able to wiggle it, and then it made it over this hump, and then it's seated into place. Before resecuring this bolt of the center console, you need to make sure the side piece is underneath this lip, continues on underneath this piece right here, and then goes in behind this front piece. So now we're ready to reattach this bolt. Make sure both of these clips are seated in all the way. You just push in on that side piece, and then that should lock into place. Now we're ready for the back panel. Before we do such, we want to make sure these tabs are locked in for this HVAC vent that goes to the back here. So just give it a good wiggle. If that's in place, we're now ready for this back panel. Start at the bottom. And you'll get a couple clicks into place because it clicks right here and right there. AC vent only goes in one way. Fish it down into that AC tube and it clips right in. Now you're at the point where you're ready to retighten up the bolt that you spun counterclockwise to loosen the emergency brake cable. So keep turning it. I would turn it the exact same that you did whenever you loosened it. So to loosen, I did 7 turns counterclockwise. To tighten it back up, I did 7 turns clockwise. And now I think we're at a good point. E-brake travel. So now that that is good and in place, we'll go ahead and slide this stuff back. Old cable out, new cable in, and officially installed. This is the old one. Actually, I still have the tether onto it. Whenever I fished it out, I reattached the new line to this old speaker wire, pushed it through, made installation a breeze. But this is the reason why I replaced it in the first place. This was broken, and I think a bunch of crud got in there, rendering this cable kind of useless because it's very hard to push and pull on it, so I imagine a bunch of junk got inside of there. But we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's officially replaced. So to show you that it now works, here is the rear wheel. Freely spins. Lift up on the e-brake. And that is not going anywhere. Lower the e-brake, and the wheel freely spins. So that concludes today's installation video of a replacement emergency brake cable on your 2003 to 2011 and 2012 Saab 9-3. If this video helped you out, be sure to give it a giant thumbs up and definitely consider subscribing. I have a ton of how-to videos out there, and especially Saab related ones. If you're wondering as far as part numbers, I'll be sure to throw some part numbers as well as some links in the description below, and also I'll throw the links to some tools that I use to complete this job. So with that being said, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you next time.